The question is a motion be agreed to. I call the member for Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to pay tribute to Jim Carlton, or as we called him, JJ, call me Jim, as he was fond of saying to us, who I first met back in 1971 when I was a very young Liberal, and he took over from the great Sir John Carrick, as General Secretary of the Liberal Party. And as the member for Berowra has said, they were fairly busy times. He moved straight into running the 1972 federal election. And in those days, election campaigning was done individually by the states, so there was no coordinated national campaign. And as he said in his farewell speech in this place, he had come out of McKinsey & Co., a world competitive consulting firm, and was running the 72 federal campaign with a separate advertising agency to the ones used by all other states, almost no communication with any other parts of the organisation, and was not too sure about the role he had in front of him. But also, as the member for Berowra said, and formerly member for Parramatta, he then went on to lead us in a great victory in the Parramatta by-election. Mr Deputy Speaker, I remember quite well the great influence Jim Carlton had in the party in those days, and he had an excellent relationship with the Young Liberal movement, to the extent that one of our annual reviews, which staged publicly at the Phillip Street Theatres and ran for 3 or 4 nights, there was actually a skit called The Importance of Being JC, and that was directed fairly at Jim Carlton and John Carrick, and in those days we had the Young Liberal President Jim Carey and a fairly influential state member Jim Cameron. So the JCs in the Liberal Party in New South Wales in the 70s were quite prominent, and of course the person who enjoyed that skit more than most was Jim himself. As he said in this place as he left and retired, and I quote from his valedictory speech, "When I first came into Parliament, both parties were essentially protectionist, both supporting the classic original Deakin Labor movement compact of the early 1900s, which was a great social compact, but it had become outdated. To us, it was a question of how soon that would be understood and how soon the parties would be shifted away from that. Both parties have now moved away from it, both major political groupings, in quite a dramatic way. This change has been tremendous. We did not get much understanding or support from the Labor Party in those early days. I think Peter Walsh, John Kerrin and John Button were the 3 who were sympathetic. But fortunately, when the Labor government came into office, a band of people seemed to become converted to the necessity of moving Australia into a more competitive mode. A lot has been done. And more tellingly, Mr Deputy Speaker, particularly given the legislation in the chamber today, he went on to say, "It has been very frustrating to be in opposition during this period. It has been good to welcome changes as they have occurred. The big single change that still has to occur is in the labour market. Until we have freedom of contract in the labour market, until we break the monopoly position of the unions with coverage assured by somebody else on their behalf, we have not got to the heart of the matter." Mr Deputy Speaker, in 1977, Jim Carlton joined this place as a member for Mackellar, and I moved to Queensland. So I had a lot less contact with him. But of course, on his retirement, he became the new Chief Executive Officer of Australian Red Cross, and I have become very involved in the Red Cross in Queensland. So our paths were to meet again, and it was wonderful to have him in that role where he brought so much organisational change, but also, I think because of some of his background in the Liberal Party, understood the importance of the volunteer network, and our branches and members in the Red Cross in Queensland appreciated his recognition of the key role that they had to play in the Red Cross. More recently, he moved into other areas, and as a member for Barrow noted, I then had contact with him with his role in Papua New Guinea. His work seemingly never ceased. Even when he retired from one role, he'd take on another, usually with even more demands on his time. He also found time late in life to serve on the board of PNG Sustainable Development Program, which was born out of BHP's departure from Oktedi. The PNG SDP's long-term presence and investment in the Western Province sought to provide an alternative economy after the closure of the Oktedi mine. Jim brought all of his skills from politics, life and Red Cross to this role, and he needed them all. And he genuinely enjoyed this role, even though it was incredibly challenging from time to time. His contribution to the main board and with the microfinance arm was considerable. He was genuinely concerned to find a way to resolve recent differences between the government of PNG and PNG Sustainable, differences that remain today and would have benefited from his ongoing contribution. This was a role where Jim made yet another contribution to the world around him. My sympathies to Di and the extended Carlton family. May he rest in peace.